right, this is the measuring gross domestic product student work assignment. I'm going to use DocHub to make any changes I need to. All right, economists use the equation GDP equals C plus I plus G plus EX plus IM to calculate gross domestic product, GDP. In questions 1 through 5, state what category of spending each variable in the equation stands for, and then describe, that's important, describe what is included in each category. So we're going to have to select the text here, put this. So the C stands for consumer, or consumption rather. All right. And that is the spending or the expenditure made by households. Now, if you guys remember a while ago, I mean, it's been a while now, but we did the circular flow of economic activity. Remember, we had firms, we had the government, and then we had households. And then we had arrows being drawn between like households sell labor to firms, firms sell goods to individuals, governments take taxes and then provide services. So this is like a different version of that interaction. So this is the expenditure made by households or consumers, okay? The I, so the I stands for investment. And investment is the same thing as, well, I mean, it's different, but it's the expenditure made by firms or businesses. All right, the G stands for government. Government purchases. And these are expenditures made by the government and it includes, I'm sorry, not including government transfer payments. If you don't remember what this is again, all right, when you have a job, you have to pay taxes. One of the things you also have to include when you're paying is you have to include Social Security. Social Security it's like the government is taking money from you now at 15 or 18 or whatever age, and then they hold it. And the idea is that when you become eligible for retirement, which for men right now it's 65 and for women it's 67, then you begin to withdraw payments or transfer from the government of payments from the government's trust, the Social Security trust, back to you. Okay, that's how it works. So you pay in advance. It's not it's an entitlement. You are entitled to Social Security because if you have a job and you're working and you're not being paid cash, but you're part of the actual economy, you're paying into it. That's why you get money out of it. All right, EX, what does it stand for? Well, EX stands for export spending. And what this is export spending. It is the amount. It's the amount that's spent by like people inside of a country, residents is what we'll call them, of other countries for goods that are produced in the United States. All right. So like if your mom or dad or whoever makes something here in the United States and it's bought by people in Canada, Mexico, China, Germany, wherever, that's considered to be an export. Export spending is what people in other countries spend on American goods. Okay. And then IM is the opposite of that. IM is import spending. And import spending is the amount spent by Americans for foreign produced goods. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about this. Our president is one of the people who is confused about this. He looks at the amount of export spending, the amount of goods that another country is buying, and then he looks at the amount of goods that Americans are buying, and he looks at China, right? So Chinese citizens don't buy a whole lot from the United States relative to what we buy, which is we buy tons of stuff. If you've ever been to Walmart, you know that most of the goods that are produced there are sold in Walmart, right? So that's not, and President Trump's not wrong. We do import way, way more from China than we sell. But there's this thing that we've talked about already, which is specialization. Like the United States is really, really good at some things and not very good at other things. So the Chinese, right now anyways, are very good at cheap labor. And they can produce things. I think I gave this example. Would have been a while ago, but like we can't grow bananas in the United States. So what we do is we trade dollars and we buy bananas from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. And, they don't produce cars or TVs or something. And so they take those dollars and they use those to buy the goods that they want. And the system works. Now, does this mean that imbalances happen? Well, yeah, they definitely happen. But just because there's an imbalance doesn't not necessarily mean that things are bad. Okay? All right. So in question 6 to 15, you're going to identify the category into which the transaction should be placed by writing either a C, an I, a G, an EX, or an IM in the space provided. And if you're confused what those are, they're the things that we just defined. If the value of the good or the service in the transaction is not included in gross domestic product, indicate that this by writing not GDP in the space. Okay. So 6, the U.S. government spends $5 billion to improve highways. Well, geez, that's a tough one. Must be G. Todd buys a new washing machine for his home. So Todd is the consumer. So that's a C. Judy buys a new computer for her engineering firm. Okay, so it's in her engineering firm. So this is an I for an investment because it's for business. Pfizer sells pharmaceuticals to a company in Germany, which there's a Pfizer right here in Michigan. So that's an EX because the Germans are buying those products. Okay, then we've got Bruce buys a Honda that was made in Japan. That's an import. We've got General Electric spends $10 million to build a new factory in New York. So that is I for investment. Then we've got Mei Ling buys stock in Google. Okay, so it's stock, right? So stock is not GDP. Oop. All right. Remember, stocks and yeah, I know it's Stock Hub. It's like the best thing ever, isn't it? But it's free. All right, let's see, not GDP. All right, so stocks and financial transactions do not get included in gross domestic product. All right, next one. The U.S. government pays your grandfather $500 as part of a Social Security entitlement. So it's the same thing, not gross domestic product. And I'm going to have a problem fitting that in there the way that I would like, but oh well. There we go. Never give up. Okay, Melissa pays her hairstylist $50 for a haircut. Okay, so Melissa's a person, so it's C for consumer. And then Widgets Incorporated buys new vans to update its aging fleet of delivery vehicles. Well, it's a business, so this is an investment. Okay, it's not that hard to do. All right, so in questions 16 to 19, you're going to identify the spending component of gross domestic product. Is it consumer, investment, government spending, export, or import spending? That will be affected by the event that's described. And then you're going to state whether gross domestic product will rise or fall due to the event, assuming that no other spending component of GDP changes. All right. So foreign consumers choose to buy American cars. Well, the cars are made here in the United States, but they're being sold overseas. So that's an export. And what should gross domestic product do? Well, if we're selling more of something, it should rise, right? Business spending on factories and equipment increases. So it's a factory. So that's an I. And if they're building more of them, it should rise. Congress passes a bill that includes a large amount of money earmarked for education. Okay. Now, it doesn't say like Social Security. It says education, right? So this is definitely a G. That part's easy. But this is not a transfer of payments. So this means if you're spending more money on something, GDP is going to rise. All right. Consumers go on a spending sprees all across the country, buying goods with the Made in the USA label. Okay. So this is C because consumers are doing it. And since they're buying goods here in the United States, that means GDP is going to rise. All right. Now, per capita gross domestic product is one measure of the standard of living in a country. It's not the only one, but in questions 20 to 22, calculate the per capita gross domestic product rounded to the nearest dollar. So country A has a population of 486,000 and a gross domestic product of 27 billion per capita. GDP, how do you figure, what is it? Okay, so you have to do some math here. So you take the numbers, okay, and you're going to take the total number of people. It's important. And then you've got your 27 billion. You can use like the calculator here. Like it'll take lots and lots of numbers. So you got 486,000. Okay. And then you want to divide that by 27 billion. And how if I did it right? So 27 billion. All right. So what you get is essentially $55,000, 556 per person. So in this case, what we're going to put down is 55,556 because you want to round it to the nearest dollar. Okay. So if you took $27 billion that's in the gross domestic product for that country and you equally distributed it between each person, that would mean that the people living in this country would have a standard of living of $55,556. You do the same thing for country B. It's got a population of 127 million and a gross domestic product of $3.745 trillion. And you get, make sure you use the dollar sign, guys, 29,488. Country C has a population of 4.5 million and a gross domestic product of 183 billion people. Okay, do the same thing that we did already, and you end up getting 40,667. All right, complete the following table to compare the countries 20 to 22. All right, which country had the highest gross domestic product? Well, that would be B. Okay, and if you don't understand why, you just look at the numbers. 3.745 trillion is higher than 27 billion or 183 billion. So that's B. Okay. Now, who had the highest per capita GDP? Well, A has the highest number that we figured out. So boom, put in A. Country with the second highest. So the second highest GDP was C. Okay. 183, which is higher than 27. And then second highest per capita GDP, so 40,000 is higher than 29. So then we know that we've got three things to work with here, right? A, B, and C. So we've already used B and C. So A goes here and B goes there. All right. Now this question says, are the people in the country with the highest per capita GDP in question 23 better off? And then it wants you to explain your answer. Well, the answers that you give are going to vary, right? And the reason why is just because you live in a country that has high gross domestic product, it does not necessarily mean that you benefit from that. So do we have poor people here in the United States? Yes, we do. Are there poor people in every country? Definitely. You could be poor in the United States and live in relative comfort compared to somebody, say, in a developing country. So another way to look at this too is you take a country like, say, Saudi Arabia, very, very wealthy country, right? Because of their oil production. It has a relatively small population, but they have the same issues that the United States has, which is a select number of people have a great deal of wealth, and then a whole bunch of people don't have any access to the wealth. So if you are a member of the rich living in Saudi Arabia, your life is great. If you're, a member of the working class, your life sucks. So that's how it goes. Okay. So the answer, it's going to depend, but one of the things that's not considered when looking at things like per capita GDP is what's called upward mobility, which is the ability of a person to go from a lower class to an upper class. In the United States, you have a chance. Okay? You definitely have a chance. You could be a kid who grew up in Flint or Davison or Swartz Creek, and your family was absolutely poor, and maybe you have some sort of talent. It could be anything. And you can rise to be Elon Musk, a millionaire, multimillionaire. So is that the case in India or Saudi Arabia or China? Not to the same degree, no. Okay. So that's where that's at. Thanks, guys.